Reality does not always fit exactly into the prejudices of our minds. If we are aware of these prejudices, we can overlook them. Let's explore how psychological principles can shed light on why people's lives don't necessarily improve through expectations alone. Cognitive biases are systematic patterns of deviation from rationality or sound judgment that often occur unconsciously and can influence our perceptions, decisions, and behaviors. These cognitive biases are a fundamental aspect of human cognition and have been studied extensively in psychology and behavioral economics. Understanding cognitive biases is crucial as they can lead to errors in judgment, decision-making, and problem-solving. Below I will summarize some important cognitive biases along with examples to illustrate their impact. Biases refer to a preference or prejudice toward a particular person, thing, or idea. They can be conscious or unconscious and influence our thoughts, behaviors, and decisions. Biases can be positive or negative, but they can be problematic if they lead to unfair or inaccurate judgments. What are cognitive biases and their key points? Definition: cognitive distortions are systematic patterns of deviation from rationality or sound judgment that often occur unconsciously and influence our perceptions, decisions, and behaviors. In psychology, people are known to be subject to various cognitive biases, including optimism bias and confirmation bias. Optimism bias causes people to overestimate the likelihood of positive outcomes while underestimating potential risks or challenges. When people have high expectations due to this bias, they are more likely to be disappointed when reality does not meet these expectations. Similarly, confirmation bias can lead people to seek information that confirms their pre-existing beliefs or expectations, further reinforcing unrealistic expectations. Nature: these biases are inherent aspects of human cognition, resulting from the brain's efficient but imperfect processing mechanisms. They affect individuals in various contexts, such as decision-making, problem-solving, and social interactions. Types: cognitive biases come in various forms, such as confirmation bias, favoring information that confirms pre-existing beliefs; availability heuristics, overestimating the likelihood of events based on their importance; and anchoring bias, over-reliance on initial information when making decisions. Effects: cognitive biases can lead to errors in judgment and decision-making. They can cause people to overlook relevant information, make suboptimal decisions, and engage in irrational behavior. These effects can occur in both private and professional environments and can influence financial decisions, medical diagnoses, and interpersonal relationships. Influence: cognitive biases influence risk perception, preferences, and interpretations of events. They shape the way information is processed and influence the formation of attitudes and beliefs. In addition, cognitive biases can influence group dynamics and lead to phenomena such as groupthink and conformity. Remedy: while cognitive biases are pervasive, being aware of their existence can mitigate their effects. Critical thinking, reflection, and seeking different perspectives can help to recognize and counteract cognitive bias. In addition, decision-making frameworks and heuristics that encourage reflection and consideration of different viewpoints can help mitigate the influence of bias. Implications: understanding cognitive biases has significant implications for fields such as psychology, economics, and public policy. By recognizing the role of bias in human decision-making, researchers and practitioners can develop interventions and strategies to promote more rational and informed decisions. This knowledge also underscores the importance of humility and openness to feedback in order to manage the complexity of human judgment and behavior. Confirmation bias: this bias involves the tendency to seek, interpret, favor, and retrieve information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. For example, if someone believes that a particular lawyer or business person is incompetent, they will selectively focus on information that supports this belief while ignoring evidence to the contrary. Availability heuristic: the availability heuristic is the tendency to overestimate the probability of events that are more readily available in memory. This can be the case because recent or emotionally salient events are easier to recall. For example, people may overestimate the risk of a bear attack after hearing about a bear attack in the news, even though the actual likelihood of such an event is low. Anchoring and adaptation: anchoring occurs when people rely too much on the first piece of information. the anchor, when making decisions, even if this information is irrelevant or arbitrary. Subsequent judgments are then adjusted based on this initial anchor, often to an inadequate degree. In negotiations, the initial offer can serve as an anchor and influence the outcome. Overconfidence bias. Overconfidence bias refers to the tendency to overestimate one's own abilities, knowledge, or predictions. This can lead to people taking excessive risks or making incorrect decisions because they feel too confident in their assessments. For example, a trader may overestimate their ability to predict market trends and make risky investments. Framing effect. The framing effect occurs when the way information is presented, or framed, influences decision-making and judgment. People are more risk-averse when options are presented in terms of potential losses rather than potential gains, even if the options are objectively the same. For example, people are more likely to opt for surgery if the survival rate is presented as 90% rather than the mortality rate as 10%. Hindsight bias. Hindsight bias, also known as the "I have always known" effect, refers to the tendency to view past events as more predictable than they actually were. After an event occurs, individuals may overestimate their ability to predict the outcome, leading them to overestimate their foresight. For example, after a stock market crash, investors may claim that they knew all along that the market was overvalued. Bandwagon effect. The bandwagon effect is the tendency of people to adopt certain behaviors, beliefs, or opinions simply because others around them do so, regardless of evidence or reason. This can lead to conformity and the perpetuation of popular but potentially flawed ideas. For example, the popularity of a certain fashion trend may lead people to follow it even if they don't like it. These are just a few examples of the cognitive biases that influence human thinking and decision-making. If you are aware of these biases, you can make an effort to mitigate their effects and make more rational and informed decisions in different areas of life. The role of perception. Perception plays a crucial role in shaping expectations and subsequent outcomes. Psychologists study phenomena such as perceptual attitudes, which refer to the tendency to perceive and interpret information in a way that conforms to preconceived notions or expectations. This can influence how individuals perceive their progress towards goals and whether they interpret events as successes or failures. Unrealistic or rigid expectations can distort perceptions and cause individuals to overlook progress or opportunities for growth. Social comparison and self-esteem. Social comparison theory states that people evaluate themselves by comparing their abilities, characteristics, and achievements with those of others. In today's connected world, social media reinforces this tendency by providing a constant opportunity for comparison. When people compare their lives to the carefully curated images presented on social media, they can develop unrealistic expectations of their own lives. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy, lowered self-esteem, and a sense that their lives do not live up to the perceived standards of others. Psychological well-being and fulfillment. Research in the field of positive psychology has highlighted the importance of factors such as autonomy, mastery, and relatedness in promoting psychological well-being and fulfillment. When people have rigid or externally driven expectations, they may sacrifice their autonomy and intrinsic motivation in the pursuit of external validation or societal norms. This can undermine their sense of mastery and affect their overall well-being. In contrast, people who pursue intrinsic goals that align with their values and interests typically experience greater satisfaction and fulfillment, regardless of external outcomes. Adaptation and the hedonic treadmill. Psychology also explores the phenomenon of hedonic adaptation, whereby people adapt quickly to changes in their circumstances and return to a relatively stable level of happiness or satisfaction. This suggests that the pursuit of external goals or material possessions as a means of improving one's life may be futile in the long run. Instead, lasting happiness can come from cultivating inner resources such as gratitude, resilience, and meaningful relationships with others. To summarize, psychology provides valuable insights into why people's lives do not improve through expectations alone. By understanding cognitive biases, the role of perception, the influence of social factors, the importance of psychological well-being, and the phenomenon of hedonistic adaptation, people can take more realistic and adaptive approaches to goal setting and pursue paths that lead to greater fulfillment and well-being. Consider the example of Juliet, a university graduate with high expectations for her career. Juliet had always excelled academically and envisioned landing a prestigious job in a high-profile company right after graduation. She spent years studying hard, participating in extracurricular activities and networking to secure internships and build her resume. When she entered the job market, Juliet faced stiff competition and had to accept numerous rejections from the companies she had set her sights on. Despite her qualifications and efforts, she struggled to find a job that met her high expectations. With each rejection, Juliet's self-confidence waned and she began to doubt her abilities and worth. Over time, Juliet's fixation on her original expectations became a source of frustration and disappointment. She found herself comparing her progress to that of her peers who seemed to succeed effortlessly. Juliet's mental health suffered as she grappled with feelings of inadequacy and uncertainty about her future. Her narrow focus on her predetermined career path prevented her from considering alternative options or exploring new interests. She became increasingly disillusioned with her chosen field and struggled to find meaning and fulfillment in her professional pursuits. Ultimately, Juliet's life did not improve simply because of her expectations of landing her dream job. While ambition and aspiration are important motivators, Juliet's rigid adherence to her predetermined goals led to disillusionment and hindered her ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Only by reviewing her expectations, seeking support and exploring alternative paths could Juliet begin to find fulfillment and satisfaction in her career and life. Technological progress, the proliferation of misinformation and the complexity of modern society, it is becoming increasingly important for people to be aware of cognitive biases. Here are some cognitive biases that can be particularly relevant and ways to help people become aware of them. Confirmation bias. In the age of social media and personalized algorithms, confirmation bias is more prevalent than ever. People tend to consume information that aligns with their existing beliefs, leading to echo chambers and reinforcing polarized views. To combat this bias, individuals can consciously seek out different perspectives, critically evaluate sources of information and engage in constructive dialogue with those who hold different viewpoints. Availability heuristic. Given the constant stream of news and information available online, the availability heuristic can distort perceptions of risk and probability. Dramatic or emotionally charged events may be perceived more strongly and therefore overestimated in terms of likelihood. Promoting media literacy and teaching the ability to assess the credibility and relevance of information can help to mitigate the influence of this bias. Anchoring bias. Anchoring bias can influence various aspects of decision-making, from negotiations to financial planning. For example, when shopping online, consumers are influenced by the initial price they see and base their willingness to pay on this. By raising awareness of this bias and encouraging people to consider multiple points of reference when making decisions, they can make more informed choices. Overconfidence bias. The fast pace of modern life can exacerbate overconfidence bias and lead individuals to underestimate risks and overestimate their abilities. In areas such as investment and entrepreneurship, overconfidence can lead to reckless decisions and financial losses. Encouraging humility, self-reflection and a willingness to seek feedback can help people to curb their overconfidence and assess their abilities more realistically. Framing effect. In the digital age, the framing effect in the media and advertising is particularly important. How information is presented can significantly influence perceptions and decisions. For example, the framing of health-related messages can influence people's willingness to engage in preventive behavior. Teaching media literacy and encouraging critical thinking can enable individuals to recognize and evaluate framing effects in different contexts. Hindsight bias. In hindsight, events often appear more predictable than they were, which leads to an overestimation of one's foresight. This bias can distort the perception of past decisions and undermine learning from experience. Encouraging reflection on decision-making processes and emphasizing the role of uncertainty can help people acknowledge the limitations of hindsight and develop a more nuanced understanding of past events. By promoting awareness of these cognitive biases and providing practical strategies to mitigate their effects, people can make more informed decisions, navigate the complexities of the digital age, and cultivate a more accurate understanding of the world around them in the present and beyond. Changing our lives for the better and overcoming cognitive bias is a multifaceted journey.